on this edition of the Self-Publishing Show.
So instead of just feeding our kids and buying things for them, we kind of invite them to take part in the family business.
Publishing is changing. No more gatekeepers, no more barriers, no one standing between you and your readers. Do you want to make a living from your writing? Join indie bestseller Mark Dawson and first-time author James Blatch as they shine a light on the secrets of self-publishing success. This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Yes, hello, welcome to the Self-Publishing Show with me, James Blatch.
And me, Mark Dawson. Hello.
Hello, Mark. How are you doing?
I'm all right. I'm damp and windy today because it's Storm Eric has...
It hasn't got a name. Is it this storm?
Storm Eric, yes. Has
Eric.
Blown in Eric, yeah, which doesn't sound like a very frightening name.
How much damage can Eric do?
Not much, but it's quite windy and it's very wet. So we're sheltering. I'm sheltering the office today.
My fence has been buckling in the wind. I have to say, if they're listening to this podcast, which they won't be, my neighbour's fence is the one that's buckling in the wind. My fence is solid and recently renewed. This fence needs work.
That reminds me of one of my favourite memes on Facebook after we had a minor storm a couple of months ago, and there's a picture of, given that we complain about the weather all the time, there's a picture of some picnic furniture blown over in the garden, and the quote is, "We will rebuild." And it's comparing it to real natural disasters, which we're not very good at doing that.
No,
anyway.
We're not. Well, there's been some extraordinary weather in the world. I was talking about this just last night with my friend who is a climate scientist, and we just played tennis together. But, I mean, the weather they've had in the Midwest of America has been sensationally cold. I mean, life-threateningly, life-taking cold. -29 with wind factors up to 6.
Polar vortex.
Polar vortex. And at the same time, we've had record highs. In fact, I think they went from that to a record winter high in 4 days. So craziness with the weather. But yes. Anyway.
Yes. Anyway, let's. We always start with the weather, don't we? It's getting predictable.
I like talking about the weather. We're British.
It was my fault.
We are British. People like us being British. They want us to be British. You have to put up with discussion about the weather. That's how that works.
Well, I've just finished my crumpet and I've had a cup of tea.
Carry on, Eric. Okay, we've got a couple of things to talk about in this podcast today. We are going to be speaking to an author called Elin Peer, who's originally from Scandinavia but lives in the northwest of the United States now. A really interesting interview about characters, how her particular background lends itself to creating these layered, complex characters. So very, very well worth listening. And actually, I'll give you a little teaser coming up. Also done an interview about how to create the perfect villain and hero, which is coming up, which is a really good chat with Sacha Black.
I blame all my villains on John Dyer.
Yeah, and your heroes. That's the complexity of the character.
He is a complex character. That's very true.
There's a subtlety to that. Good. Right. We'll talk about a couple of things to do with social media advertising, your particular speciality, Mark Dawson, one of the drivers to your 7 figures of income last year. And there are changes, as always. There's always changes under the hood and sometimes front of house on these platforms. So Facebook have made a couple of changes in the last week or so. Good additions, Mark?
Yeah, they've added some new content. It's been more than a couple of weeks old. It's been around for a little while, but it's called Dynamic Creative, which gives you the chance to really split test very effectively and easily. So split testing, if you don't know, is where you change one or two elements just to see whether those elements lead to an improvement in whatever it is that you're testing. So with an ad, for example, you might want to run different variations on the cover, or you might want to change the text or the headline or even the buy button. All kinds of things that you can change. And with this dynamic creative, what it allows you to do is to upload up to 10 images or 10 videos or a combination of the two, 5 headlines, 5 texts, and 5 different button configurations, whatever you want. And then what Facebook will do is it will serve those in combination and we'll see if it can find out which of them is the most effective. So perhaps you can then work out whatever you're optimizing for, whether it's the click-through rate or the number that buy, whatever it is that you're trying to improve. Facebook will allow you to see that in a much more straightforward way. So I've been playing with that for the last week or so and recorded like a 10 or 15 minute video yesterday that went into the Facebook mastery group for people who are on the Ads for Authors course. And that's got some really good feedback. And there's a lot of new stuff that we're going to be introducing over the next couple of months, and I'll be dripping that into the mastery group before we put it all together, codify it, and release it as an addition to the ads course. So quite looking forward to getting into that.
Yeah, I mean, there was some discussion about this in all our groups, but just to say that the mastery group is the closed Facebook group for students of the Ads for Authors course, and that is opening again in
June.
May. I think maybe May. I think maybe May. Good. Now that's one thing. Another thing I know that you've been playing about with in the last couple of weeks, because I get emails from Amazon full of your books, is you've been doing daily deals and countdown deals with them. Countdown deals, I guess, is the one you've been doing.
Countdown deals, yeah. So I've got a big backlist now, so 35-ish books, I suppose, in total, and almost all of them are in Select now, and there's lots of benefits to being in Select. Lots of reasons why you wouldn't want to be as well, but that's a discussion for another podcast. Some of the benefits that you can have include running Kindle countdown deals. So you can take your price and drop it down to below the threshold where you'd normally be able to get the 70%. So instead of, if you're normally at 99 pence or cents, you'd be getting 35% as a royalty. When you run a KCD, you can get the full 70%. So it's also good for visibility as well. So you can drive these offers out to your mailing list. You can run social ads. There's better visibility through Amazon. They'll be placed in certain places where these deals are promoted. You'll get emails. So you've seen one of those emails today sent by Amazon, not by me, notifying people who like me or have bought books by me in the past that there's a deal on one of these books. And I've been trying to do that every 2 or 3 weeks. So just cycling through them. And one of the things that I've been doing is I've got my VA, Alexandra, one of the VAs that works with me, who also does some stuff for SPF. She has been nominating these books for placements on places like Fussy Librarian, Kindle Books and Tips, ENT, and those kinds of sites just below BookBub.
ENT.
That will send out those
ENT,
yes. Email, what's it now? E-Reader News Today. There you go, yes. So those will go out as well. So maybe spending a couple of $100 or $300 every other week to send out get those emails sent out to promote those books as well. And it has worked quite well. So on those Fridays, I usually run them for 4 days, starting from Thursday through to a Sunday, and promote it on the Friday. And on those Fridays, I always see a pretty significant leap for that promoted title, both in terms of ranking. So they'll usually go into the top 200 on both sides of the Atlantic, and also they will generate, maybe I'll sell 1,000 copies or 2,000 copies, which is going to be around about $1,500 to $1,600. So that's not to be sniffed at. And of course, that introduces them to new people who wouldn't have seen me before, who may go on and buy other books. So there's lots of benefits to doing this. And the only reason I wasn't doing it before was because I frankly was being a bit lazy. So I'm trying to up my game and do that more regularly now.
I can't imagine you being lazy.
I'm not normally, but no, I have been a little bit lax. So fixing that.
And one final area to talk about, this is also something that happened some time ago, but takes a while to kind of roll out to everybody. And we have to keep a careful eye on this because we have course material that relates directly to it. And that is that the Amazon advertising platform is really undergoing a fairly significant change over the last few months. And one of those includes the ending of the product display ads, but the ability to advertise on the lock screen of a Kindle, which is, there's always been adverts on the lock screen. In fact, I've seen one of your books come up. I think maybe Karen Ingalls. I've certainly seen other SPF community members' books come up on the lock screen in the past, but now more regular access to that for people.
Yeah, that's definitely, you can do it, and there have been changes going on for a while. And one of the things that's happened with this change is people are piling into lock screen ads, and they're too expensive at the moment. So my advice would be not to worry too much about them until the people who have got just basically bidding $150 as their top end to get onto the lock screens realize that's not going to make them any money, and they clear off, and the CPCs will come down again. So it's quite expensive right now, but yeah, it is. Lots of things are changing. I probably can't say what this is. I don't know whether this is confidential. No, I think it's very confidential. I had a webinar last night. I've been invited into a beta program, which I think is generally is closed at the moment, where Amazon is trialing some new ability to attribute sales that come through on your Amazon page. So in other words, you would be able to pixel other traffic sources, and then you can work out, see the sales on your page and work out where they came from. So this could be a massive game changer. I've been kind of looking at this for ages, and there are plenty of other ways we've managed to get around that with using affiliate tracking, but to have something central on Amazon where you can attribute email, you could have a column to see how many you sell via your email list, how many via your Facebook ads, how many via your BookBub ads. The potential is enormous. At the moment, it doesn't work. So I'm in the program, but I'm not able to generate these pieces of code that will enable me to track. But Amazon is definitely thinking about this. There are other changes coming down the track with regards to Amazon advertising that I definitely can't talk about on the podcast, but I think this year could be quite exciting for advertisers and people who are just trying to sell their books.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the next revision of the ads, AMS ads course, Amazon ads we call it now.
You don't have to do the work. That's why.
No, I know. So I'm looking forward to it. I do actually have to do the editing.
I know you do.
No, but how crucial is that? It's the magic juice is to understand where the work you're putting in is to no avail, and where maybe you're not working that hard and it's really valuable. And just knowing that is, we batter that into people all the time in terms of analysing, going through the data and working smart.
Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. Good. I have to say about the lock screen, I'm a Kindle guy, have been for some time, and very rarely is a lock screen ad targeted anywhere near me. It's very often for a romance or just books I don't read, genres I don't read.
That'll be because the people who are doing the advertising haven't targeted them very effectively a lot of the time. So you will definitely see that. And at the moment, I think it's worse because people are just spending a lot of money bidding really high on getting these ads to fire, and maybe being a little bit indiscriminate with their targeting, which obviously isn't going to work. Obviously you will buy romance books because that's exactly the kind of book that you read. But probably not ideal. So things will need to be, authors will do better to target more discriminately. But let's see what happens. I think at the moment there's a lot of people who are running into these ads and spending too much money, bidding too high, and at levels that only the biggest indies with big backlists and big advertising budgets will be able to make work. And if you're bidding for a dollar a click, it's very unlikely that you're going to make a profit, given the conversion will be 10% if you're doing well. It'll be very difficult to make a profit if you've just got a couple of books. You need a bigger backlist to bid at that level. That's not to say that you shouldn't be running more competitively priced ads, entering the auction with more realistic bids, because you can do quite well when you do that. But just don't go crazy, because you can easily lose your shirt with these kinds of things.
You don't think it's the trad industry that's rushed in on these lock screen ads is upping the bidding price?
It could be. They're definitely slowly realizing that Amazon advertising and Facebook advertising is a good idea. About 5 years later than everybody else did, but and they'll have bigger budgets than most other advertisers. But, I certainly don't think that they're going to be any better at advertising than we are. And it's quite rare for me to see a trad ad and to think that's been well done creatively, or from what I can see, to work out that it's been well targeted. So, we'll see. Things are shaking up all the time. Lots of things are happening.
A trad ad. Sounds a bit like a Japanese mafia. Okay. Let's talk to our guest today, who is Elin Peer, and as I mentioned at the beginning, she's from Scandinavia, from Denmark, in fact. Mark bumped into her in Bali, and we'll chat about your impression of Elin and what she's doing after the interview, Mark. But the interview itself is fascinating, about characters, about insight into characters, and how her books are working. And also, she's a husband-wife partnership in terms of self-publishing, and in fact a bit of a family affair, bringing her daughters into it as well. Very impressively. It's a great interview. She's a great person, and we'll have a chat off the back.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Well, Elin, I'm going to say welcome to the Self-Publishing Show. Thank you so much indeed for joining us from the northwest, right in the northwest of America. of not of America, because that would be I can't even know how to say it. Not the United States either, because that would be Alaska. But anyway, northwest of the middle bit of the United States.
The Pacific Northwest is what
There
they
you
call
go.
it here.
That's what I
in
needed.
Seattle, yeah.
Yeah, not the bit where you can walk to Russia in winter, which is even further northwest. Excellent. Well, look,
You can see it from Alaska. I was there, and you can see Russia, but you can't. I don't think you can walk. Can you?
well, doesn't it freeze over at some point of the year? Anyway,
Probably.
I don't know. I'm at the
Thank
limit.
you for having me.
Hey, you're welcome. It's great to have you here. And I'm going to make sure I say Elin, which is the correct pronunciation of your name. And
Yes, Elin Peer.
Elin Peer. And where does the name come from? Where does Elin come from?
Well, it's a Scandinavian name, like me, and it is my middle name. And Peer comes from it's my father and my grandfather's name. And they were great storytellers. None of them were published, but they were great storytellers. And they would, my grandfather, we have a tradition in my family, and we get certified troll hunters, which comes with the territory when you grow up in Scandinavia. So we would, go into the forest, and he would tell me stories about how he couldn't see the trolls, but as a kid I could. So it was on my shoulders to see them. Of course, I always did. So that imagination that came from those two men, and I honor them by having their name as my last name, as my last author name. Yeah.
Brilliant. Of course, there's a long tradition of sagas from the
Yes.
northern European countries. So you say Scandinavia, is it Norway, Sweden?
Denmark.
Oh, Denmark. Okay,
Denmark.
the one I didn't mention.
Yes.
So, okay,
Yeah.
and I could see that blonde hair, that very Scandinavian look. It's I got a sister-in-law who's Norwegian, and we go there from time to time. Spend quite a lot of time actually in Scandinavia. And it's a breathtaking part of the world, just gigantic fjords and although Denmark's a bit flatter.
It is. And I have to say that living here in Seattle, I adore the nature, because it's a lot like Switzerland or Austria or southern Germany, which I used to live in. And I'm a mountain girl in forests and woods, and I just love that. We don't have the mountains in Denmark, so I feel at home here.
Good. Well, look, we've got our geography lesson out of the way. So let's talk about writing. And Elin, I think one of the things we want to talk to you about is sort of almost creating and crafting a new genre, an individual genre, which you've done. And we're going to talk about how you make that work. It's a frequent complaint or a challenge that people raise, is that they've got a unique genre that they don't know how to market, etc. So that's the area we're going to cover today. You should first of all explain that how this genre came about, because I think you started, or your background is in counselling and helping people in the real world.
Yeah. So I had a company where I was a personal coach, and I focus on families, helping families with, teenagers that a lot of my clients were very distraught to the point of, heavy stress, suicidal thoughts, self-harm, that sort of thing, but also the parents, because it affects the whole family. So I did a lot of marriage counseling. And and so from that background, my challenge was to get the young kids to read the books, and also the parents, because a lot of people have good intentions, but then sitting down and actually reading 400 words from Tony Robbins or someone else, they just don't get it done. And I figured, okay, so what are we going to do? My business partner and I, we came up with the concept of writing books that were interesting, that was full of, love and coming of age and that sort of thing. So we wrote some books, and the kids loved them. We never market them, but the kids loved them. Our coaching clients did. But from that, I learned that I love to write. And so I created Elin Peer, my new author name at that time. This is about 3 years ago. I created that name, and I just wrote books, not having taken any sort of author course. I had no idea about genres. I just had stories to tell. And in those stories, there were a lot of tools given, because that was my world. I can't really have a conversation with anyone without telling or challenging their limiting thoughts or coming up with, have you thought about this? It's always a new perspective on things. And so that became rooted in the way I write. And my readers started reacting to that. So I would get emails from people saying, "Oh my God, this book, it was nothing like I thought it would be. I thought it was going to be a romance," and it does have romance because there's always a happy ending. But it also had all these deeper, food for thought and perspective. And they would say, "Changed my life. I used to be this girl. and you help me see, you help me heal. And so that's when it dawned on me at some point, well, I'm not sticking to the romance genre and the limitations that it has, but I have created something that I just, it's working, and the audience is talking about the books and sharing the books with their friends and family. And so it grows and grows. And so here we are.
So if I got this right, the idea was to try and sneak in a self-help book in the guise of a romance book, or a book that a kid might actually, a teenager might actually read.
Yeah, that's how it started. And that book was a lot. I mean, it's not great writing. It was in a different language, first of all, because English is not my first language. And it was my first attempt of a book. And looking back, I never talk about the books. I never tell people what they're called, because I've grown so much as an author since then. But the idea was there. And it was about a girl who would be cutting herself. Why is she cutting herself? And then, but not just talking about why is she cutting herself, but also giving her the tools to understand how can she stop hurting herself? How can she grow in to become self-sufficient with praise? And because often it's a self-esteem issue. And I think when we talk about this genre that, and again, maybe I haven't created it so much because there has to be other people who do the same. I think every author uses storytelling to convey whatever troubles people in the world. But I just take it a bit further, because I'm not only just portraying what it looks like to have anxiety or a low self-esteem or marriage problems. I'm also bringing tools to the couple so that they can be happy, or the individuals so that they can grow and become more tolerant. And so again, I pitch people. I pitch a vegan against a guy who owns a number of steakhouses. Or I pitch a psychic medium who sees dead people against a scientist who doesn't believe in that sort of thing, because that will put it on the edge. And those people have to grow to a different level of tolerance and acceptance and appreciation of others being different in order to have that happy ending. So and in this genre, the two basic things is really what happens in everybody's life, yours, mine. It doesn't matter what color you have, what geography, what gender, we all have two basic fears. It's just imprinted in our nervous system. One, am I good enough? And if I'm not good enough, will you love me? And it really goes back to if you're not loved, if you're not accepted, then what happens? Back in the days, way back, if you got expelled from a community, you were dead. How are you going to heal yourself if you got sick? How are you going to hunt? So that's what I'm playing around with in my books all the time. The fear of rejection and a lot of banter, of course, because I pitch people who are so unaligned, who have nothing in common except they are physically attracted to each other, or they just have this chemistry going. So from that, we can work on the differences. And that's interesting because a lot of people are divided. And there's a big division in the world right now. So my books are always about coming together, finding that balance, finding what unites us rather than what divides us.
Well, we need a bit of that at the moment. And so you create these characters, these flawed characters who have challenges in their lives. And then you kind of employ, through your writing, you employ your own skill set as a counsellor to heal them or to help them through it.
Yes.
And the result of that is something that somebody can read and hopefully relate to, as well as enjoy the story.
Exactly. And the way it works is, for instance, let me give you an example, because again, storytelling is how we remember things. So you can read a book on, love languages, for instance, but I have a character. I had a woman write me and she said, I've been married for 18 years. And it just dawned on me when I read your book, what's the problem in my marriage? And now I just see it so differently. I just want to thank you. And it was really one of the characters that I have in Men of the North, who's a true, he's not one to share emotions. So he doesn't tell his wife that he loves her, and she wants to hear it, and she's complaining about it to a friend. And the friend says, I've been listening to you nagging about how he's always on your, bag about, have you remembered this? Have you been drinking water? Have you got your gloves, your hat, And she says, I know you're annoyed by that, but what if he said, honey, I don't want you to be cold. Did you remember your gloves? Or what if he said, I worry about you. I want you to be healthy and I care about you. Did you drink enough water? Because I don't want you to be dehydrated, babe. But he doesn't say babe, and he doesn't say honey, and he doesn't say I love you. He doesn't say it in those words, but if you have that skill set, you can hear that he's shouting at her, I love you, I care about you, I want you to be comfortable, I want you to be healthy. Yet for her, it comes across as being on her back and nagging, right? So saying I love you, many people say it in an awkward way, but nevertheless, they are saying it. So when you start to understand that when you interpret it, and she said, that is my husband, he's always doing things like that, careful. And it's like, I'm not a child. But then when she started seeing this is really him expressing his love for her, his interest is, and I said, what would it be like if he didn't, if he never did care about, you? And so these are little things that and again, I want to emphasize that my books, a lot of people will read them and not get any coaching at all because it's entertainment first. But then I have a lot of readers who read them many, many times and keep finding new things. Because I do go down to the explanation, but it's never from a, preaching perspective or a coaching perspective. It's always like little hints or conversations. So it's subtle, and that's the way it has to be, because otherwise it becomes too much self-help and too little fiction. So it's that fine balance of humor, of bringing those nuggets of wisdom in a way that you don't even realize you got him, except you sit back with a feeling of, wow, I never thought about that. That's a different way. Maybe I could, and you bring it up in conversation with your friends because you read something and it was smart, that sort of thing. That's why it works so well.
I tell you what's really interesting about this is for writers who have to create characters is understanding how the human condition, how flawed people are, because it's very easy to write one-dimensional characters. One of the first things a good editor will say is there's no frailty to this. So when you want to introduce that, I think listening to you is starting to get me thinking. Actually, I'm doing an interview later this week with Sacha Black about this, about how to create an interesting character. But it's really understanding how the nuances of somebody who finds it difficult to say I love you and expresses it in a different way. And I also think, maybe this is a British thing, it might also be Scandinavian, for men is being loved, I think, is sometimes very difficult for my generation, my parents' generation in particular. For men, being loved is as much a challenge, as much a flaw as loving. And once you start to understand this, that's going to help you create these really realistic characters, interesting characters.
And you have to be true to them. And so one of my issues has been, for instance, in Men of the North, which is my biggest success, I'm portraying 400 years in the future, a society where men were isolated for 400 years and women ruled the world, basically. And there were men with them, but not as many. And they definitely didn't stand up to the women. So it's become unbalanced. And of course, I'm choosing this scenario because it allows me to play around with masculinity in its raw essence, femininity in the raw essence, and then clash them. And it's always about balance. And when you really have those two opposites, you can it becomes very easy to see because they both have good points. None of them are right or wrong, just need each other to be balanced. And one of my characters, he would never listen to someone who's wise or go to a therapy session, so it would be I wouldn't be true to him if I made him do that. So instead, I sent him to Alaska. He just goes, screw you all. He goes to Alaska, has a major long period of time where he's cold, he's freezing, he's hungry. And then, it's an internal fight to get to take responsibility. Why are you here? It's not everybody else's fault. And it takes a meeting with a guy in a shop that's just bitter and old. And he realizes that's going to be me in 30 years, blaming the world if I don't step up. So with other characters, I've been able to plant a priestess, someone who's wise that can give this kind of insight. But with him, he would have never listened. And he couldn't get it from his wife because she was from the Northlands where he's from too. And so she doesn't have that level of maturity. And I was really even as a coach, I was like, how am I going to help this guy? Because some people just don't want to listen to good advice and they have to go on that journey themselves. So I think that's really important to stay true to that character. For me, for instance, being a Scandinavian woman, I have no problem confronting people. So I will, if you said something, doubted me, I wouldn't be afraid to say, what? You don't think I can make it? But everybody's not like that. If I was raised in the Japanese culture, I would never challenge you that way because you would be a male. So culture plays in, but also conditioning, and raising above the conditioning that you have with you, because we all do, is what makes this genre interesting. This is what really, because then every side character has that conditioning with them as well, and they become more than just one-dimensional.
Yeah.
So that's my strength. That is the character. And also I can pull from people. Listen, when you've done marriage counseling, when you've done personal counseling, you have a lot of people's deep desires and dark desires. And so even though I never mention names, but it comes into, I know I have never been a goth, but I've been with a person who was. I've never been sexually molested, but I've been with someone who was. I've never, so I can pull on these experiences and other people's experience. It becomes very realistic. The thought patterns, the reactions to when you get under pressure and that sort of thing. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I can't think of better training for a novel writer than to sit through counselling sessions for a decade or so. Particularly marriage guidance, I imagine, is, as you say, you hear how people function.
Because I can corner a lot of my readers. Like, I didn't think they were going to make it because I corner them to a point where you won't see normally, at least not in romance, which is, I guess, the overall theme of my books, is because if you cornered them that way as a normal author, you wouldn't know how to get them out. But I do, right? So I can take them even from the worst place of there's no chance they can get back together. But I can help them do that. And so by doing that, I also show you, the reader, you can do this too. Because a lot of readers have relationships that are not perfect in some capacity. And so here, okay, so they made it work. Maybe I can too.
Yeah. So where are you with the books? When did you really complete the transition from a counsellor who wrote a book to help to somebody writing novels in a more commercial sense?
Well, it started 3 years ago. So after writing the 4 books, which were mainly for kids and teenagers, I had these stories brewing in my mind, and they were dark stories because I had specialized in bullying, and I had a lot of things going on inside me, I think energy-wise, so I had this story about a woman being kidnapped and becoming a slave, because that would be the ultimate bully, someone who not only sees you at school, but actually takes you physically and makes you his to treat badly. And so it was a story of not only going into that slavery, but also getting out. And how do you then, how do you get back on your feet? How do you not let an experience like that define you? So that was not comparable to what I had been writing before. And I did not want any of my kids that had, the clients who had loved the other books to pick up these books because they were dark in nature. And I worked through that. I think we all have something we work through as authors. And so the first series was a bit more dark than what I'm doing now. It's a lot of more humor. And so I think it became really defined last year. I've been doing it for 3 years, right? 2016 March was my first book. And then now with The Men of the North, it's just become something my readers are expecting of me. And so every time I plot a book, I always have this, okay, so this person has a lot of anxiety, or it can be a side character. Well, let's play with that. What does it look like? Because you can read a self-help book and they will tell you, and the person has a negative thought pattern, but I'm showing you what it looks like. What are you saying to yourself if you have anxiety? Even though you might be the biggest star, but when you have to go on stage and you have this, the symptoms and the thought patterns, what does it look like? But also, what can you do to stop that? How can you, overcome it? Yeah. So this, I would say 2018 was the year where I really understood this is my strength and I don't have to downplay it. And I don't have to listen to people saying, you can't do this in romance, you can't do that in romance, because I stick to the real life romance and people do stupid things all the time. And so I'm not putting a nice bow around my romance books. And people either love them or hate them, and that's fine. But the people who love them, they really, really love them. And I go with that.
And you've got enough people who really love them to have made a success of this.
Yes, I have. I have a lot of, and it's growing every day. I mean, I can see how, and the good thing is a lot of people are talking about it. So they will send me, messages saying, oh my God, I got my colleague hooked and she's sitting across from me and she's laughing and she's listening to the audiobooks or, something like that. Or I had this week, someone, one of my readers who's been following me for a few years wrote on Facebook how meeting me and meeting my books had changed his life. So it's something people sit up and go, huh. Yeah, so it's a snowball, isn't it? You start out small and you're happy with everything, and I still am.
Commercially, it is working for you. This is your career now.
Yes, I'm way into the six figures now, and it's really, it just keeps going bigger, better, but I feel like I have to say, when I started writing, I did have a crisis of conscience because I had been working with these kids and families, and it's an ego boost in a way, but it's also very satisfactory to have a family who are on the brink of divorce. Maybe the husband said, I want the divorce. And then 3 months later, after working with them, now they're happy again. They're finding out, why did we get together in the first place? Or a kid who's already tried to commit suicide, and now you see them thrive and being successful and wanting to change and help other people. And so that type of work is very important. And so when I started writing full time and I had to say no to coaching clients because I simply didn't have the time, and I wanted to write, it was a crisis of conscience. I felt really bad because it felt in a way, what if, I know that there are other people who can do what I did, but what if she doesn't get the right person, right? And so the pressure was on me. But then people started writing, this book changed my life, and they was writing me from Ireland, from Iceland, from, north, south, everywhere. And it suddenly it was kind of okay, this is what I'm supposed to do, because now I'm reaching thousands instead of doing one-on-one.
Out of interest, do you publish in Danish or Scandinavian languages as well, or just English?
No, I have I never published anything in Danish. I've been asked by publishers in Denmark if I have something, if I would be willing to write in Danish, but no, because it's a small market, and I feel honestly most Danes can, even my mom can read my books, and her English education is from the 60s, and so they can read English, and I would love to share it with my grandmother or something, but I just feel like my audience is here, and they can translate them if they want to. So we're working on that part with a Danish publisher.
Okay, well, that's why us English speakers are so lazy, because ultimately everyone learns English for us, which is very convenient.
But I don't even know if I could, James, though, because I never tried, and I've lived in the US for 7 years, and I'm so used to writing English now. And I think, when people, because some people are like, well, you write in English? Because it's my second language, of course. But I think I'm much better in writing than I am in verbal. And I think one of the advantages when it's not your first language is that you keep it kind of simple. You don't have these lavish explanations, and I think also that comes down to the coaching part, is that I'm very good at simplifying the complicated, if I can say it that way, and that just makes it very easily digested. Because as a reader, you just want to go. We know from research that it's like 6th grade level is the right one. That's where people just swallow your books, because they don't have to stop and look up a word or go, what is that again? Right. And so I kind of naturally place myself at that level, I think, without trying. And I have all these languages because I speak several, and I know that there is a word. I may not, know the English word for it, but I can just look it up. So I have a wider range in a way, and I just keep it more simple in a way.
Yeah, I think
not simple, but simplistic.
Yes, I think that probably is a great advantage. So how are you marketing at the moment? How have you made the transition to fiction?
From the beginning, it was Well, not from the beginning, but in the beginning it was promos, like doing promos, running, Amazon, reduced prices and giving away and that sort of thing. I'm very, very lucky that my husband is my partner in crime, and he does everything related to marketing. So he does Facebook, Amazon, Google, and honestly, he talks about it, and he has these whiteboards in his office with, I don't know, because the thing is, when I say I'm lucky, I really mean it. Because if you're like me and you like the creative part of it and the content, but not so much the marketing, then having that spouse to do that for you is amazing. I get a little, when Mark starts talking about split testing and algorithms, and I just freeze up because that's just not my comfort zone. I think many of us feel that way. And so having my husband is a software engineer, and he works for Microsoft. So he when Mark talks about these things, he's like leaning in, like, tell me more.
Yeah.
Right. So we have this good division of you do that and I do this, and he sends out newsletters. I write the content, but yeah. So we definitely market. We also do. I haven't had the success with BookBub, probably because I am exclusive with Amazon. And when I went to Bali, when I met Mark about a month ago, that was one of the things that really dawned it on me, that if you are exclusive with Amazon, it's going to be a tough one to get a BookBub. But what I do instead is that I will have like 30 or 40 promo sites push my book at the same time. So it's a massive push. And then I have maybe 15,000 downloads, maybe 10,000, maybe 5, but depending on, how many I book at the same time. But I just kind of push it out. And that has worked for me really well.
Good. I like the idea that when Mark starts talking, one half of the partnership runs to the hills, the other half runs to the whiteboard. You do need that. It's useful.
It is. And I think a lot of us, especially, it was funny because in Bali, there were about 40 writers, I think 38. And you can't help notice that how many of them are husband and wife teams. It's interesting. And I am happy we have that same thing, because you need that support. And if you have someone who's able to or willing to do the business side of it, that's obviously a huge advantage. So I saw there was a man he was writing with his brother, and there was also 2 teams, which was mother and daughter team. And I'm lucky in the way that I have both my husband, who does the marketing and the business, and then I also have my daughter, who helps me with the content, with the plotting. So I have both.
Good family business. I like it.
It is. Yeah. You know what they say, if you want to help a man, don't give him a fish, but teach him how to fish. That's how I do it with my kids. I really, because Pearl, my daughter, who is 14 right now, going on 15, is a talented writer herself and has won literacy awards, and she helps me with the plotting and becomes involved in little things like the book covers and titles of the books, and sees that side of the business and grows confident that, I can do this too. And she can. She just needs, so she's my apprentice. That's what I call her.
Your little Padawan. Excellent. Well, just circling back then to the idea behind your novels. What percentage do you think of your readers are reading your novel and either deliberately looking out for things to help them in their lives or inadvertently being helped in their lives? And what percentage are simply enjoying layered characters and reading them like any other romance book?
Oh, that's a difficult one. I would say maybe 90%, 85, 90%, just reading it, especially the new readers. But if I look at the reviews, which I don't do very often, but if I look at the reviews, they often say things like, wow, I'm sitting back, had not expected that. All right. And so the next book they pick up, they are going to expect something like that. So it changes. So the people who are coming in right now, picking up The First Men of the North or one of my free books on my website, I'm not going to expect anything else than a romance, because that's the plot blurb. I don't talk to them so much about this. You can expect this. And then it also depends what level are they at. Because if you already know a lot of this stuff, you're just going to go through it like, yeah, that's fine. But if you are new to a lot of the coaching tools, then you're gonna be, wow and aha and whoa, I didn't, so it's gonna be different for every reader. But I can definitely see that a lot of the ones that are my super fans, they expect it, and they point it out, and they read the books many times, which is always a big compliment, because they will swallow it and then they will reread it slowly, and that's good. Yeah, so maybe 90, 80, I don't know, somewhere in, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want them to pick it up because they want self-help. But people who do not have the patience for self-help books, they can get it. They can get a lot. If you read this is going to be my 19th book coming out as Elin Peer. And in those 19 books, we've covered so much about communication, how to resolve conflicts, how to, if you low self-esteem versus self-confidence, all those things that you deep understanding of what's the difference and why is one better than the other. And, so anxiety, there's a ton of things in these books. So if you've read every book I've ever written, you're going to have a lot of tools with you that you use in your everyday life. Or maybe not, if you're just going through them like, what next? And there are people like that who just swallow them up.
So read a romance novel and become a better person.
Yeah, one said, it's funny because I have a lot, every time I have 5 times a year, I publish a book, about 5 times a year. And they go, every time I see it's available and it's up, I just drop everything and go read. And that's what you want as an author, isn't it? The book that will keep people reading all night, or they will drop everything just because now your book is out. I mean, for me, that's the biggest award. And then what they say is it's like eating chocolate and having the benefit of going to the gym, right? Because I indulge in this romance novel with the sexy scenes and the, all the things that we love about romance. But at the same time, I'm also getting a new perspective and new ideas for how I can be resolving a conflict within my life, or growing a new perspective on something. So yeah, best of both worlds. I really feel like I'm giving sugar-coated vitamin pills here.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the success, and I can see why the books are addictive for your fans who like it, because clearly you've got such a great insight into, as I say, the human condition. What we all struggle with, and the baggage we are lumbered with when we grow up, and how we shake ourselves away from it. Maybe it takes people their whole lifetime sometimes. And you're prolific, 5 books a year. How long are these books?
They vary from, I think, 85,000 words to 128,000 words. So they're pretty, they're good. It's not short stories. Let's just put it that way. And the funny thing is they keep getting longer. And every time my readers still say they're too short. They're just too short. And that's a good thing. Again, they want more. I take that as a compliment. Well,
that's an impressive word count by anyone's measure, doing 5 of those a year. So you're writing 1,500, 2,000 words a day, every day.
I don't write every day, though. I'm more of a sprint, so I'll sit down on the weekends and I'll do 10,000 words. For me, and this has been just for me, I have a window of time with my kids that they want me and need me. So I really do put that first. But on the side of that, I'm able to still work around, because I take my kids to basketball, but then I'll sit in the car and just type 1,000 words, or while I wait for them. So it's not a full, it is my full-time job, and I do spend a lot of time doing it, but I work it around other things. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great benefits of this lifestyle, isn't it? That you can do that, and why wouldn't you? Why would you not? Because we both have daughters about the same age, and it's going to be the blink of an eye when they're not here, and they don't want your company. So yeah, absolutely make the most of it now.
And that's also why I'm bringing her in. Yep. If you have someone, if you have a kid, or a spouse for that matter, but if you have someone in your life who is interested in this. So what I did, for instance, was my kid was very interested in the whole process. She's not allowed to yet write, I'll do that, but she will be the read. But what I did ask of her was that she also becomes a coach. And so she is very into sports. And now she worked hard, but she's now a sports psychology coach. Because again, this is what makes, I think, my books of, a high quality is that I understand people and we read about people and because we want to identify with them, right? So I wanted her to start out, if you want to be a good author, then get this foundation down, understand dynamics, understand psychology, because that will make you stronger as an author. Or at least that's what it's been like for me. And she did it. And so yeah, you can, if your kids are interested, you can also, point it back at them and go, then show me you're interested. So show me you're serious, because then I will involve you. And so I pay her to plot with me. It's her after school job, you can say, because then it becomes serious. And no doubt people may smile, but she is a major part of my success because she does not have the fear of going anywhere. She will push the characters. She has a deep and good understanding of people. It comes with, growing up with a mom who's a coach and sits and talks a lot. But yeah, so I feel like I'm giving her the tools to go and do what I do and be a great partner for me if she really wants to do it. Obviously, we'll have to see down the road, but yeah.
I like the fact that you've got the apprentice with a kind of line drawing. Yeah, you can plot at the moment, and at some point in the future, this is a proper apprenticeship staged over a period of time, and she's not going to burn out quickly. She's going to learn her trade thoroughly under you, I think.
And we have some good discussions. She challenges me because she's very opinionated.
Mm-hmm. I know that feeling.
In the last. Mm-hmm. And I encourage that, but also she has to be able to, it's in a productive way, but it is a very strong back and forth. Seriously, you want to have him, but if he gets hurt, people are going to not like it. Yeah, but, so we have these going back and forth, and it is of great value to me because everyone who's ever plotted know you're going to, the whole bouncing back ideas just makes it get to a higher level. And she does that with me. And not everybody can do it. My youngest is 11, but when we went to Bali and she met all these amazing people and we were sharing also, what are you making? What are you making? And we sat with one of them who is 25 and travels the world and writes books and he's making close to $1 million a year. And my 11-year-old, she was, that impressed her. Mm-hmm. And she said after, I want to be part of this book business, but I don't want to write so much as I want to do what Dad does. So it became kind of obvious. She loves social media. I don't. But she loves graphic things. So now I'm introducing her to BookBrush, where we can, if you don't know BookBrush, you need to look it up because it's amazing. And so she can help me with, graphical design because it's so simple and we can work together. And that process does not have to wait until they are adults. You can start it slow and let them be part of it. And the pride, James, that they have, that they are allowed and that their opinion matters. And so she can learn how to send out news I'm, predicting if she really wants to do it, and we will pay her to have it as an after school job. By the time she's 16, if she want to put the work in, of course, she can send out newsletters. She can, do ads on Facebook with the supervision of her dad, right? So you teach your kids, and then no matter if she wants to do book marketing in the future, she will still know how to promote a product, which is a good skill set to have in this modern day and age. So instead of just feeding our kids and buying things for them, we kind of invite them to take part in the family business because that's what, and we have a lot of shared visions. Like we want to be geographically and financially free so we can go wherever we want to go, right? And this is what it looks like. If you want that for yourself, then let us show you what we do, how we do it.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does make sense. It sounds brilliant. And I think that there's no part of the skills you're teaching your daughters aren't going to go amiss. In fact, one of the big areas I think at the moment is there are quite a lot of authors who frequently say to us, can you do my marketing for me? And they just don't want to do it themselves. And so there's this massive growth of home-based, basically publishing companies, but they're run on a much more indie basis. And I can quite see your daughter, if it does take off for her and she doesn't want to write and doesn't want to work in your business anymore, at some point she could very easily be doing this for other people. And there's definite scope for that. Elin, look, it's been brilliant. Thank you so much. We've had, people may have heard this fairly heavy rain on my roof here. It's supposed to be snowing, but inevitably it's just raining here in the UK. And I want to thank you because I had a broadband explosion at the end of last week that only just got resolved, and you were very patient with me over a few days whilst I argued with one of the largest companies in Britain to try and desperately persuade them to reinstall the basic broadband that they took out. So thank you for that. It's been really fascinating, a really unusual, I think, interview as well, just in terms of your background moving into novels, that very, very character driven, that insight into humans, and how well that's gone for you and how well it's made the books work.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is the Self-Publishing Show. There's never been a better time to be a writer.
Okay. Yeah, so you spent some time on the beach with the Peers. And were the whole family there? Was it just Mr. and Mrs.?
There were 3 of them. So yes, they were lovely. I met them. I didn't think I saw them at the conference itself, but I was at breakfast one morning and they introduced themselves and said that they'd flown over to. Well, one of the reasons was to see me, which was extremely flattering. And yeah, they're lovely. So I had a good chat with them all. Interesting to see that Mr. Peer works for Microsoft, I think, and handles the kind of the more technical side of the business. But there were several husband-wife couples actually in Bali, perhaps not surprising given that it was a great excuse to have a tax-free holiday. And interesting to see how they all work. We've had a couple of them on the podcast before, but it's interesting to see how everyone divvies up the responsibilities. One will be doing the writing, another will be doing the marketing and all that kind of stuff. It's a really good idea. And it was lovely to see how well that they've done. They're really professional. The content is excellent. The covers are great. The marketing is obviously on point because they've taken the Ads for Authors course, which is always a good idea. And it's just lovely to see them doing so well. So it was a pleasure to meet them.
Yeah, and very interesting with her background, having listened to these couples in the depths of despair or at the point of breakup and using that in the books and putting her fictional characters into desperate straits and then rescuing them because of the knowledge she's got about how the human condition works and so on. And that's how she got her knowledge for her books. How do you understand our former MI6 assassins who are now alcoholics? Where do you get that insight from, Mark Dawson?
Well, if I told you, James, I would have to drive to Huntingdon and
Novichok
and eliminate you. Yeah. Even if it is your birthday.
It is my birthday. Finally, you mentioned it. I thought you weren't going to mention it.
60 today. You don't look a day over 65.
60. How rude. 42.
Yeah, whatever.
Might be
bollocks.
Yeah. Okay, good. Well, look, thank you so much indeed for joining me on my birthday, and thank you for your wishes if you've sent them along. This is going to go out a week today, so we're recording this on the 8th of February, and it's going to go out on whatever the 15th is, whatever it is. Can't do maths. Next week, and we have got a really good. I've been doing the scheduling today because we've got loads of interviews in the can, some really good ones. Big stars, people like Craig Martell, big prominent people in the industry coming up in the next few weeks. And I'm looking forward to those. So I'm going to say thank you. I'm off to get drunk because that's...
Have you noticed anything different in my shot, James? For those who are watching on YouTube.
Well, I've got a slightly different shot, of course, from the...
Oh, yes, you do. You won't be able to see. So the folks at home will be able to see over my shoulder which shoulder? That one. That the counter that we've got for the Facebook likes, I switched that over this morning, so I haven't suddenly added 20,000 to my author page. That's the SPF count now. So
okay.
I thought it was more appropriate to have the SPF count for the podcast. And of course, if I do author things, readers will think I'm more popular than I really am. So everyone's a winner.
I could get one and stick it on the wall there.
You can get Instagram. Yeah, you should get an Instagram one.
Yes, yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, because we're making progress on Instagram, aren't we?
Well, we aren't. Lucy is.
Lucy is, yes.
Lucy is running that herself and doing a very good job.
And the Instagram course has now been added to Ads for Authors, and we have an interview with Stuart Grant, which is in the pipeline as well. About
what else? What else do we have about Instagram?
The other thing we have about Instagram, which is very interesting, is, I don't know, I'm padding for time. I can't think what else we've got about Instagram.
I'll give you a clue. There's lots of them behind me. It's a book.
Yes, we have a book. Excellent point. We have a really good book, very detailed, very thorough, really well illustrated, put together by Stuart with the team here at SPF. And you can download that book. And the cost of that book, Mark, how much does it cost? It
costs F all.
F all, otherwise known as completely free to you. You can get that book at selfpublishingformula.com/Instagram book, all one word. And if you go there, you can download the book. And yes, it's a really good book. Excellent. We'll have Stuart on to talk through the process soon. Good. I'm trying to get into Instagram. I'm a bit of a Twitter and Facebook person. So, I mean, so how many social media platforms can one person run? But
yes, yeah.
I'm trying to get into Instagram a bit more. I do like the photographs and the visuals on it. So good. I think that's it. We'll mention the Instagram book at the beginning of next week's podcast because it needs a push, and we should have mentioned it earlier. But well done for remembering it at the last minute, like my birthday.
I remembered everything. I just I doled out my information over the course of the hour. So there we are. I saved the two best bits for the end.
As my editor says, you allow it to unfold.
I do, yes. I have a natural flair for that kind of thing. So
thank you very much indeed. I am now going to get drunk. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Get show notes, the podcast archive, and free resources to boost your writing career at selfpublishingshow.com. Join our thriving Facebook group at selfpublishingshow.com/Facebook. Support the show at patreon.com/selfpublishingshow. And join us next week for more help and inspiration so that you can make your mark as a successful indie author. Publishing is changing, so get your words into the world and join the revolution with the Self-Publishing Show.